Good morning, dear students, Department of Philosophy, Durgapur Government College. This is Dr. Bhumika Kanjilal, HOD Department of Philosophy, and I would be sharing a video regarding philosophical counseling and how is it important for a student in his everyday life. And I would like to bring about a little bit of Jidunath Krishnamurti, J. Krishnamurti. He's a contemporary Indian philosopher. This video would actually be a part of the special counseling sessions that we have been conducting offline. You can take a help of this video in understanding better, like the problems that a student might face while trying to integrate oneself and while trying to gather oneself on an everyday basis. I would like to address the first question, which for most cases happens to be a problem, and actually it hovers around one's mind. The question is, what comes to the making of a student? What makes a student? What is it at all to be a student? Now, to be a student, which is very relevant for all of you, is like to have a calmness of mind, which we call shanto. Then one must be there must be a self restrainment. One must have self restrainment. A self denying attitude is also necessary. Why? Because you cannot always lead to your wishes. And then there is patience, there is collectedness, and there is purity of nature. All these are a few fundamental qualities of being a student. Now we would like to ponder on, or I would rather like to make you think about some of the living habits of a student. Now, what is it at all to plan a day? You have to plan a day. Actually, when we go on for any work, we first chalk out what should be the schedule, and we must also take a note of the due dates. That is, if you have an assignment right in front of you, say you have an examination after a week, so you know that you have 7 days at hand. So the due date may be just after 7 days and the clock is ticking on. So you must have a plan, you must have a schedule, and you must have some self evaluating process. And what is that self evaluating process is like, how much did you do in a day? What is that calculation part, that, well, I have covered this much and I need to do this much more. So you must have some calculation in your mind. And there may be some, uh, every day is not the same. There may be some emergent conditions. So you must cope up with that. That is also a fact. And then you can also have some cheat days. If there are 7 days for your exam, you can take one evening as a leave, as a cheat on the schedule. Okay. So the next thing, like, these will all help you in understanding and in planning rather your own self. How do the self works? How do you appropriate and approximate your goals when something is ahead? There is a tense condition. It is true that there is a tense condition, but you need to fight. And if that is at all the case, then how will you do it? So it is like it is the living habits actually of the student. And what does these living habits do? What are the living habits at all? The living habits are like your everyday habits that you do, but you may not have a very chalk out notion of it. You may just execute them. You may just execute them without knowing the value of it. So let's have a value loaded living habit. And what will that do? That will give you an integral perception of the whole work. Okay, and this integral perception is but intuitive in nature, and this intuitive of this integral perception will make you ready for the future or for that upcoming 7 days after examination that you will be actually having. Now, what, as I have already told in the beginning, that there is something called philosophical counseling. And what is this philosophical counseling at all? Now, this philosophical counseling is, since this word counseling is attached to it, it might seem that, well, there is a counselor and there is a a counselee. And yes, it is true that you have a counselor and a counselee. Just like I am in front of you in this video talking all about it. Maybe it would have been the case like a interview situation. You are in front of me right physically, and I'm trying to ask a certain questions because with a motive to do philosophy together. Okay, with a motive to do philosophy together. Now, this is to democratize philosophy. This is to popularize philosophy. It is not only for the elite class, and it may be done in a one-to-one interaction with the help of the Platonic dialogue method. Okay. Now, if we talk about the philosophical counseling and how does it nourish the living habits of a student, is like it would be like this, that it is neither self adornment nor self condemnation. It is many a time seen that students go for either self adornment, that, well, I am so good, I am so well done, I have this much of quality, and etc. etc. That won't help you all the time. Neither is it the case that you go on for self condemnation, that I'm not good at this, I'm not good at that, see what other people are doing and how successful they are. So this is also not the case. So there need to be a balance. There need to be a balance of knowing oneself. Now, knowing oneself is not by saying that you have to know yourself doesn't mean that you actually do not know yourself. Well, you know yourself particularly well and perfectly well, but you have to take in this concept of philosophical counseling as well, and it can be in a form of a monologue, talking to your own self. Monologue is nothing but talking to your own self, trying to know how or in what way do you navigate when problems arise, when tough situations arise, when you think that there is a target, there is a schedule that you have to maintain. You are in a position which is quite not the usual. So now, what from where does this philosophical counseling come from? Now, if we say this, then we can say that, well, it can come from within, as I have told you. But yes, it is very much true that we can share it with others. Just like in this video, I'm trying to share actually my opinion, my experience of using philosophical counseling with you, with all the students who will be watching this video for sure. I am very optimistic in that. And yes, if you share, then it can be not only sharing by way of like talking, but yes, it can be sharing your practices, your customs, your rituals. Okay, in this, by via this way, these methods, these are the ways that can bring forth philosophical counseling to others. And it will be as if a standby method. You have a reservoir of, say, tools. When you are in a troubled situation, you can take out one or two of them which has been shared earlier, either by your parents or by your friends or by your teachers, or by, if you are in a job situation, or maybe by your colleagues, anyone whatsoever. Even when you are traveling, say in a bus or a train, your co traveler may share a practice, a custom, okay, and it might help you. So do not take that to be only his or her, to be subjective. If it is beneficial, if you think that yes, let's try it, you have kept it aside, you did not use it with, maybe with a doubt that well, how will it be helpful, whether it will be helpful or not, whether it will give me some in fact some negative outcome instead of the positive. You were skeptic, you did not use it. But when there is a situation which is calling for, so you can just have a look and a practice of it. Now, if we take in a very contemporary Indian philosopher called Jiddu Krishnamurti in this respect, then what he will say may be a little more beneficial for a student. Why? Because he is telling that you have to have a dissolution of the self if it is using the head instead of the heart. Sorry, but what is this head and the heart distinction of Krishnamurti? What he is at all trying to say? If this self, suppose that the self is using the head, that is, if you are always very interrogative, very questioning, very speculating, then you will find that you are going away from the situation. It is drawing you apart from the situation instead of having a very intrigue a notion and a very penetrating view of the case. You are actually pulled apart from it. So this is actually in fact harming your what, living habits. So this is the use of the head. Instead of using the head, if you try to use your heart, then what will happen? What new is going to happen? This is something new which is going to happen. It makes an integral understanding of a thing possible by direct communion with the subject with love. When you love a subject, it is not the subject philosophy. It can be any subject whatsoever. The subject is something which is like on which you are pondering on. It is not you, maybe in some cases, and in some cases, well, it may be you. So you can love yourself, try to understand yourself, and that makes easier of understanding oneself. That is all what Krishnamurti is trying to say. So, awareness of oneself is possible by observing oneself with love. Now, many a times, as we have earlier said, also self condemnation is very much in vogue. Like, we do not actually at times love our own self. Why? Because we become too much of critical. We try to compare ourselves with others and feel low. But there is no there is we shouldn't do it. Actually, there is no importance of doing it. Why hate yourself? Let's love oneself. And we thus need to add the living habit. This is a very, it's like a cherry on the top, that you actually inculcate a living habit of loving oneself, of loving your own self, and trying to understand yourself, and more importantly, be at peace with oneself. If you are at peace with your own self, you are at peace with others. You will spread this message of peace and tolerance with others as well. So you must be with peace with your own self. And then we are actually will be able to unfold our soul. What is there? What you may be like, it might feel as if you are carrying a package, a heavy baggage, in fact. But that will be lightened. That will free yourself, and you will be able to unfold yourself, or unfold your soul. Okay. And this is how perhaps a student can help oneself in his everyday life. So this video is actually made for helping students, and they can plan their day, they can have living habits, and these living habits can help them in making a schedule, in navigating their path, in overcoming their problems, understanding the present quite better, and be ready for the future. So this was all that I had for this video. I hope you have liked it, and be resilient, be hopeful, and be happy. Thank you.